Okay, so you can see every one of these messages mentions that I end up with 2 gold. But if I click the Show Stats option, this version, at this point, I have no statistics involved in this game. So this message that says I've earned gold, it's just static words. It doesn't actually affect the gameplay at all. So here in Startup, I'm going to create a variable, gold, and I'm going to start off with 5 gold. And we'll save that. And then here in the ChoiceScript stats page, this is a very, very simple basic structure, but it's the command *stat _ chart, and then it's telling me it's going to print out text. It's a number, but that's how you tell a ChoiceScript to print out a string of characters. Even though it's a number, a number display is considered text. Gold is the name of the variable I just created, and I'm going to have it's a capital letter here, gold. And that is because, I'm going to click the save icon, click play, I simply want the gold here to be capitalized. If I didn't do that, it would be a lowercase letter, and that just kind of bothered me. Okay, now the thing is, the next step is in the Ranger quest to sort of acknowledge that I've won this goal. I actually have to explicitly tell ChoiceScript to increment gold by 2. ChoiceScript doesn't do negative numbers very well because this is actually not saying now gold equals 2. It's saying gold, I've now added 2 to gold. If I had to set gold 2, that would say now I have 2 items. If I set gold to plus 2, that means I need 2 more. It's a little confusing if I want to set this to, minus 50 or something like that. The minus sign can be confusing. Anyway, all this is to say, avoid negative numbers. Okay. And we'll save it. And now when I run it, we can look at those stats. We start off with 5 gold. Let's click next. Let's do this thing that we're getting pretty good at right now. Join the Grizzle guys. Yes, I will go on the quest. I will go adventuring. I'm going to engage the trolls, and I've coded it so that really no matter what you choose here, the result is the same. Here it tells me they give you a gift of gold. Notice this, you consider your options. I really need to add a blank line in after one of these bits of message in order not to sort of make this you consider your options swallowed up by this text result. So, so I won the 2 gold, and we can see that if we go into show stats now, my gold is 7. All right, so that's a very, very simple way of demonstrating how this stuff works. And hey, let's go back to the end. I'll do the quest again. And if you are, deeply invested in earning virtual money, hey, you are now a Bitcoin farmer. You can earn 2 gold with every iteration through this particular program. Another feature that's very common with ChoiceScript games is personalizing the characters. Create a new scene. I'm going to call this Preface. I'm going to, in the startup scene, we're going to start with Preface. And I've got to line those guys up again. Remember to save. And in Preface, we will start with, we're going to input the player's name, and I'm going to add, after you've entered the player's name, I'm going to give some options. Customize and personalize the output. So that means we are using a variable called player name and player gender and player pronoun possessive. And now we have to, in the startup page, we have to declare those variables or create those variables. And I'm going to enter some default names for these variables. I'll save all these things and let's see, probably also under the ChoiceScript stats page. Flavor here. Save all these files, and let's see how I did. Okay, greetings adventure. What name do you go by? Give my own name. And I'll say I'm a man who said his name was Dennis, and it says attend the tale of Dennis and his deeds. A safety valve, and maybe it's just for the playtesters to save them some time. Instead of forcing the player to enter all that information, let's instead put this choice. Notice I'm indenting here. When I indent with a tab, now what I'm saying is all this stuff only happens when the player has chosen this option. I'll tell you my name. If you choose Anonymous Adventure will do, let's just say, very well, and allow the player to, skip those options. So let's see again. Let's go through this. So I can just go ahead and pick Anonymous Adventure, and now it just doesn't pick a pronoun at all. It just repeats the person's name. So anyway, there is a way of allowing people to personalize their game, but we're also not adding quite so many clicks as having to go through all that. So you've clicked on a video called Part 3, and here we are looking at a file named Part 2. Well, let's fix that. I'm going to open an existing project that I have on my drive. I'm going to we'll just pick the startup file. The ChoiceScript scenes are just text files. I'm going to open this one. I come over here. I'm going to open all scenes in that folder. And now we see we've got a bunch of them all kind of lined up here. When we run this project, we see it looks pretty much the same, but the stats page is much more developed. And when we go to this Ranger's quest, all this is pretty familiar. We see another option. I've added an option to leave the inn and journey on. But when we go to the Ranger's quest, we don't get the invitation to go on the quest. The character instead can only say, I'm so weary, I crave a little bit of good night's sleep. Let's look at the stats, and we see, well, our fatigue is at 80%, and our gold is at 0. So that's going to complicate things. When we ask the innkeeper for a night's lodging, we find we can't afford the price. So I'm going to offer to work in the kitchen for the privilege of sleeping in the barn. And I've expanded the sleeping options so we have a little bit more choices. The main thing to notice is that, let's look at the stats. The fatigue is 80%. Return to the game. Let's try to sleep here in the barn. And we get a message that says you're feeling a little disoriented but somewhat refreshed. And the stats, well, now our fatigue is just 40. Previously it was 80. So that'll be enough now. If we go back to the Rangers, now, at least we have the option we could turn down the option to go on the adventure, but now at least we have the option to go on that quest. Let's take a look at the code and understand the difference. I'm going to restart this game, and we'll kind of slow down and look at the part where we book a room, and that's in the inn scene. And here, when you pick the option to ask the innkeeper for a night's lodging, I've changed that so it says go to seek lodging. And in seek lodging, we check to see, is your gold less than 2? If it is, you get the message you can't afford the price. And we go to a new option called inn can't afford. Here under inn can't afford, we have many options for what to do. The option in offer to work in the kitchen has this go sub scene night routine fitful sleep. I'll walk us through what that means, but when you go sub something, you then return back to this particular line. I beefed up the sleeping routine and I moved it to the file night routine. Now this go sub scene night routine fitful sleep. Well, that means we are going to the scene called night routine. We're going to jump to the label fitful sleep. This is an optional way that you can, send people to a particular target within a scene. And then when we finish, we're going to come back here. The important thing to know is that when we look in the night routine, however you choose to sleep, your fatigue is going to drop considerably. And if we go back to this in options, again, here is where we have the option to talk to the rangers. Here we have if fatigue is less than 50, only if you are not all that fatigued, that's when you get the option to say, I crave going on this adventure for glory and riches. You can also, if your fatigue is less than 50, you have the option of turning them down. But if your fatigue is greater than or equal to 50, the only option you get is that you're so weary you crave but a good night's sleep. And then you go back to the in options loop. So if we now go to let's visit the inn. I'm going to ask the innkeeper for night's lodging. I'm going to work in the kitchen. And my fatigue starts off being 80%. I sleep. After I've slept, my fatigue is less. I go back to the rangers now. I can join them on their quest. And I've now, let's go to the ranger quest. I've beefed up the ranger quest as well, so that when you start your quest, you now have the option to abandon your quest and save your skin. And if you do that, you will come back tired. I'll talk a little bit more about what this means, this percentage plus 50 and what this percentage minus 50. I'll talk about that towards the end of this video. Now, I've added an option so that if you select your favorite melee weapon in charge, we're now at a place where we have the options of strike at the nearest troll who's sleeping, strike the largest troll, strike the smallest troll. And of course, the player doesn't know exactly what's happening here, but I have created these temporary variables to indicate whether each troll is alive. The large, sleeping, and small trolls, I've set all these variables to be true at first. And depending on your choices, you strike down some of the trolls and their status is changed to false. After this first volley of action, so I'll attack the largest troll. Now, when I did that, the sleeping troll woke up, the smaller troll backs away, but my large troll is dead. I have a second set of options here that indicates now I can strike upwards, strike to get the sleepy troll, I can strike the small troll, or I can take a defensive posture. I'm going to go ahead and strike the small troll, and we get this message here that these results tell me, well, the troll is lumbering off in the darkness, snarling, or, Now, I'm going to share all my source code with you, link in the description. I'll add comments to walk you through at least a little bit some of the sections I haven't been able to describe so far in the video. But I want to talk a little bit about how ChoiceScript deals with statistics. Now, when we look at this stats page, and let's look at the ChoiceScript stats page, and let's look at in this startup where we declare these variables. Gold is just a number. Fatigue is just a number. I'm displaying fatigue here in part of a chart. By convention, this is 0 and this is 100. The amount of gold you have is just a number. It can potentially increase indefinitely. But a chart like this tracks a statistic that's always going to be a percentage of from 0 to 100. You can't get more than 100% on the cautious versus impulsive scale or the solitary or social scale. You can only, this sort of center bar or the dividing point moves back and forth this way. It never go out here or in that direction. And in the night routine file. I offer several different ways to sleep, and I'm manipulating statistics with this funny percentage plus 90. Well, what does that mean? And if you're not into stats that much, bear with me. Just suffice to say that here when I'm setting constitution percentage plus 90, I'm not saying now constitution equals 90, and I'm not necessarily adding 90%. What I'm doing is saying, well, wherever constitution is, and for me, body fitness is this is the scale of constitution. I'm saying wherever you are right now, increase constitution 90% of the difference between the starting point and the maximum. If I were to say set constitution percentage minus 90, we'd go to 90% of the difference between the starting point and about over here. So if I'm increasing perception by percentage plus 10, well, that would be, that's about 50, so that increasing it by 10 would bring you to about right here. That doesn't seem to be a huge amount of big deal right now, but with the fairmath system, the closer you get to either end, the harder it will be to keep going in that direction. But if you manipulate these statistics only using the fairmath operator, you'll know you'll never end up accidentally going over 100 or less than 0. And it's, well, if you're dying to know more about fairmath, I'll say a bit more about it at the very end. But I have made all my source code available to you, see the link in the description, and I will continue to add comments to try to explain parts that I did not get to walk you through. As I was creating this tutorial, I made many, many visits to the ChoiceScript wiki. Link in the description. I'll recommend some, here, if you want to know all you need to know about the finish command, here we have how we can use the scene list. The search is a little bit hard to find, but if you wanted to know about fairmath, here's the section in the ChoiceScript wiki on what exactly fairmath is. And if you need to do round or do modulo or, other kind of math things, here's where to go. There's really not a whole lot I think that I can add to something like this. Here's a very useful section about indentation. I've mentioned it in the videos why indentation is important. And if you're having some trouble with indentation, this source might be pretty useful. If you are interested in advanced string processing, or want to do some interesting things with text, here's how we can add different formatting, and you can't underline or strike through in ChoiceScript right now, but you can embed hyperlinks, and you can personalize the text that's linked. I'll draw your attention to, you can include in ChoiceScript an ambient sound file, and we can also embed an image. If you're hungry for more about ChoiceScript, I think this ChoiceScript wiki is a really good direction to go. If you see any command you don't recognize in my source code, come on over here and search for it here, and hope that it will help out. So now, as far as fairmath, I don't know that I can improve upon the description that Dan Cox gives in his website, link in the description. But conceptually, fairmath is useful because if you want players to have different experiences based on how, for instance, how noble or how selfish they are, it makes sense to give them a lot of different opportunities to make noble or selfish choices. So if we have a player with a really high selfishness score of 90, that player might make, 2 even more selfish choices in a row. And if you are using fairmath, and let's say you're going to affect them, let's say if we had let's say if each selfish act that you made increased your selfishness with a fairmath percentage of 20, you might start with a 90, but after 2 additional selfish choices, you might end up with a 94. But if a person starts with a 90 score of selfishness and makes 2 selfless choices in a row, this operator might drop you from a 90 all the way down to a 59 after 2 selfishness, fairmath minus 20% operations. But with fairmath, you never have to worry about testing for any conditions outside of the 0 to 100 range, and you can expect that most players will, it'll be very rare for a player to have a score of less than 5 or above 95, so that you can try to sort of play to the middle a little bit more. Okay, so I'm hoping that this presentation on ChoiceScript is useful and helpful to you. I hope to hear from you. Please leave comments on my YouTube channel or try to reach out to me by leaving a comment on my blog post. I'm very happy to do what I can to help you on your journey through ChoiceScript, and I really appreciate the computers and writing folks for putting all this effort into making the virtual and hybrid workshops an experience that I've really enjoyed so far. So thank you to all of you, and happy choice scripting.